You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Today is Monday, March 1st, 2021, and this is your daily Star Trek news from the Roddenberry Podcast Network. On today's show, Star Trek denounces violence against Asian Americans and asks fans to stand with the AAPI community. James Darren remembers the good times filming Badda-Bing, Badda-Bang, and Walter Koenig has a few words about Hollywood, social justice, and of course, Star Trek. I'm Alison Pitt, and today's show is supported by people like you through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/daily Star Trek news. First up, the official Star Trek website at StarTrek.com has published a new article examining the rising wave of violence against Asian American and Pacific Islanders, or AAPI people, and asking Trek fans to stand with them against violence, hate, and racism. The article argues that we should band together in a multifaceted approach, denounce individual acts of racism, as well as examine the societal issues that allow violence to flourish. And we can use Star Trek and other science fiction as a model. The article's author, Mike Chen, points out that, at its best, science fiction holds a mirror up to our society. In some cases, this helps us see ourselves the way we want to be seen, shepherding both progress and normalization towards a just and equitable society. He holds up Star Trek Discovery's third season as an example. The crisis of the burn, he says, propagates into a generational trauma, fracturing alliances and leaving species and systems to fend for themselves. Michael Burnham's solution, digging into the cause of the burn, allows the Federation, Chen says, to repair broken bonds while equally building a sustainable foundation so the Federation does more than just return. Chen applies this example to the modern-day crisis of AAPI violence and argues that, like the cause of the burn, we have to address systemic racism and the myth of the model minority. That's the idea that Asian Americans are somehow better minorities than others, which serves only to drive a wedge between different marginalized groups. Without addressing the violence's root causes, punitive action against individual acts has little impact. The end of StarTrek.com's article is a collection of thought-provoking quotes from Asian American Star Trek actors, including George Takei, Garrett Wang, and Patty Yasutake. For resources on understanding and preventing AAPI violence, visit stopaapihate.org. In the meantime, you can ponder this quote from Patty Yasutake, who played Nurse Ogawa in Star Trek The Next Generation. "Apathy towards injustice is complicity. Be outraged." Now next up, actor and singer James Darren played Vic Fontaine on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Part crooner, part therapist, and all hologram. Darren only appeared in 7 episodes of Deep Space Nine, but his final appearance in Badda-Bing, Badda-Bang is arguably one of the more memorable episodes of the series. Last week, to celebrate the 22nd anniversary of that episode, StarTrek.com published an interview with Deep Space Nine's most famous lounge singer, getting all the details on his experience with the franchise. Darren first joined the cast of Deep Space Nine toward the end of the 6th season, with the episode His Way. Everyone on set was quick to welcome him into the fold. "The cast and crew made me feel as though I'd been there for years," Darren said, adding, "I didn't feel like an outsider coming in. They were very considerate with me. I don't know if it was because they liked me, Jimmy Darren, but they were just so kind. There wasn't a single person who I didn't have a good relationship with, whether it was on the set, on screen, or off." Fast forward to the end of Darren's run as Fontaine. In Badda-Bing, Badda-Bang, a programming issue in the holosuite allowed mobsters to take over Vic's holographic lounge. In order to right this wrong, the DS9 crew joined forces to outwit the mobsters and rob the casino, in a sequence of events reminiscent of the classic 1960 film Ocean's 11. Ocean's 11 starred the late Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr., all of whom Darren was friends with. When the singer-turned-actor, then 62 years old, had a chance to revisit that era filming Badda-Bing, Badda-Bang, all of those memories came flooding back. It brought me back to that era that I knew so well, Darren said. The whole era was a special time of life, so I could see why Ira Stephen Bear loved it so much. I remember the good times I had hanging out at the lounge at the Sands Hotel and Casino with Frank, Sammy, and Nancy Sinatra. I'd give up a year of my life just to spend a week back there. That's how special those times were. Darren went on to discuss what it was like singing The Best Is Yet to Come with Avery Brooks at the end of the episode. Citing Brooks's musical talent, Darren said, "My favorite performance that I got to do on DS9 was the duet with Avery. I really had fun singing and interacting with him. Every feeling you saw on screen was real. It wasn't our characters, it was Avery and I. To have that moment was great." To read the full interview with James Darren, visit StarTrek.com. I've got more news in a moment, but first, a word from me. This show is supported by people like you through Patreon. Your support from as little as $1 a month helps us pay for our expenses like hosting and software, and helps us grow the show so we can bring you even more Star Trek news wherever you are. Please consider supporting the show on Patreon. You can find out more at patreon.com/Daily Star Trek News. That's patreon.com/Daily Star Trek News, and a big thanks to you for supporting this show. Finally this week, a couple weeks ago I brought you my thoughts on Walter Koenig's recent book, Beaming Up and Getting Off: Life Before and Beyond Star Trek. And last week I had the opportunity to sit down with Walter and talk about the book, and some other stuff as well. Over the course of our 45-minute chat, we covered what Hollywood is like now compared to when he started out, why his notes on Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan were so important, as well as his thoughts on the responsibility that celebrities have to comment on social justice. A recurring theme in our chat was that while Koenig's life and career have had plenty of their own adventures before and beyond Star Trek, he's glad for the Star Trek Association. He told me, "I've said time and again ad nauseum that if I had to be identified with one entity in this industry, it might just as well be Star Trek as anything else, because I do believe in the socio-political tenet that is reprised in many of the episodes. Star Trek had a lot of good stories that made people think and say, the future could be a better place, and hopefully it will be." Specifically about the process of writing his memoirs, he was humble but honest about the job. "It was fun. I truly enjoyed it," he said. "It was cathartic because I got to say things that I had only said under my breath. I think the work is good. I'm not a writer of great stature, but when I get it right, I think I'm pretty interesting to read. So there." You can watch our whole conversation now on YouTube or read a transcript on dailystartreknews.com. I'll be putting the whole thing out as an episode or two next week, and be sure to pick up a copy of Koenig's book, Beaming Up and Getting Off: Life Before and Beyond Star Trek, at Amazon.com or other retailers. Well, that's it for today's Daily Star Trek News from the Roddenberry Podcast Network. Don't forget to check out the other great shows on the network at podcasts.roddenberry.com. Daily Star Trek News is produced by me, Alison Pitt, with selected stories by Chris Peterson. We're supported by people like you through Patreon. Find out how you can add your support at patreon.com/Daily Star Trek News. And finally, please make sure you're signed up for the Daily Star Trek newsletter at dailystartreknews.com/contact. Get all the day's Star Trek news delivered straight to your inbox every weekday morning. I'm back tomorrow with more of the Star Trek news you need to know and this week's Trek trivia. I'm Alison Pitt. Live long and prosper.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.